He had always recognized that voice. It did not roar like thunder. It did not shake the ground beneath his feet. It came steady and certain, like a whisper carried on a wind that could not be ignored. Go to Nineveh. The words did not echo in the air. They settled deep within him, pressing against his conscience, filling the quiet spaces of his heart. Jonah stood motionless, staring toward the distant horizon. The sun was warm on his face, but inside, something tightened. Nineveh, a city whose name alone stirred bitterness in his chest, a place known for violence, conquest, and cruelty, a nation feared for their brutality, a nation that had wounded others without remorse. And now he was to walk into its streets? He believed in the Lord. He had spoken in his name before. He had seen prayers answered and judgments fulfilled. He knew God was powerful. He knew God was just. And that was precisely the problem, because he also knew something else about the one who called him. The Lord was compassionate, slow to anger, rich in mercy. Jonah's jaw hardened. If I go, he murmured to himself, if they listen, if they turn from their wickedness, he will forgive them. The thought unsettled him more than the command itself. Inside him, two truths collided. One told him obedience was right. The other told him mercy would be unbearable. Nineveh was not merely distant on a map. It was personal. It represented injustice unpunished. It represented enemies who had never tasted the pain they inflicted on others. And now Jonah was being asked to offer them a warning, a chance to live. He did not doubt God's power. He doubted whether he wanted God to be merciful to them. He paced in restless circles, wrestling with his thoughts. Memories of stories told around evening fires, stories of suffering, of conquered cities, of families torn apart, rose uninvited. Nineveh was not abstract, it had a face, and he did not want that face to be forgiven. He looked down the road that led east toward the great Assyrian city. Then he turned his gaze westward toward the sea. If I go the other way, he reasoned, perhaps the calling will fade. Perhaps the Lord will choose another messenger. The choice was not made in open rebellion. It was made in fear. Fear that God's mercy would stretch farther than Jonah's comfort. Fear that obedience would require him to let go of resentment he had quietly carried for years. And so he turned. The harbor bustled with life. Merchants negotiated loudly. Sailors hauled cargo across wooden planks. The smell of salt and tar hung in the air. Life moved forward with no sign that heaven had spoken. Jonah found a vessel preparing to sail for Tarshish, a destination far across the sea, as distant from Nineveh as he could imagine. He paid his fare without hesitation. Coins exchanged hands. No one questioned his name. No one asked his story. He welcomed the anonymity. The ship pushed away from the dock, wood creaking as ropes were loosened. The shoreline began to shrink. With each passing moment, Jonah felt a strange relief. See, he told himself, the world has not ended. The sky has not fallen. He descended below deck, away from the open sky, away from the horizon that might remind him of where he was meant to go. The dim light flickered against the curved wooden walls. "This is not defiance," he whispered in the darkness. "It is self-preservation." But deep within, he knew he was not fleeing a city. He was fleeing a question. What if God's compassion was greater than his sense of justice?
The ship sailed on calm waters for a time. The wind was steady. The crew moved with confidence. It seemed for a fleeting moment that escape was possible. Then the sky changed. Without warning, a violent wind tore across the sea. Clouds gathered in thick, swirling masses. Waves rose like walls, crashing against the hull with relentless force. The vessel groaned under the strain. Sailors shouted over the roar of wind. Ropes snapped tight. Cargo slid across the deck. Men who had survived countless storms felt fear settle into their bones. "This is no ordinary gale," one cried. They hurled cargo overboard, desperate to lighten the ship. Crates splashed into the raging sea. Still, the storm intensified, as though driven by a will beyond nature. Each man cried out to his own God, voices breaking in desperation. And below deck, Jonah slept. He lay curled against the wooden beams, rocked by chaos he had chosen. The captain burst into the darkness, seized him by the shoulders, and shook him awake. "How can you sleep at a time like this? Rise, call upon your God. Perhaps he will consider us, and we will not perish." Jonah opened his eyes. The fury above echoed in the silence between them. On deck, the crew cast lots to determine who was responsible for this disaster. The small marked stones were thrown. The lot fell to Jonah. Faces turned toward him, fearful, confused, demanding answers. "Who are you? What is your occupation? From where do you come?" He drew a slow breath. "I am a Hebrew," he said. "I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land." A tremor passed through the men. "You worship the one who made the sea?" someone whispered. "And you are fleeing from him?" Jonah did not argue. He did not deny it. The waves climbed higher. "What shall we do to you, that the sea may become calm for us?" His voice was steady now. "Cast me into the sea, and it will grow quiet. I know this storm has come because of me." They hesitated. They rowed harder, straining toward shore, but the sea grew more violent still. Finally, with trembling hands, they lifted him. "Lord, do not hold us accountable for this man's life." Then they released him. For a brief instant, Jonah felt weightless between sky and sea. Then the water swallowed him. Cold darkness closed over his head. The roar of wind vanished beneath the surface. He sank, deeper and deeper, as the storm above ceased. The sea grew calm as though nothing had ever disturbed it. Below, Jonah descended into silence. Water pressed in on all sides. His lungs burned, his limbs weakened. So this is the end, he thought. Distance had not delivered him. Silence had not silenced God. Strength failed him. And in that place, where pride dissolved and control slipped from his grasp, he stopped running. Then, in the moment when death seemed certain, something immense moved through the depths. A great creature engulfed him. Darkness again, but different. Not the endless emptiness of the sea, but an enclosed space, alive and warm. Jonah gasped, drawing breath he did not expect to have. He lay there, disoriented, surrounded by thick darkness and the steady rhythm of a life greater than his own. At first, terror gripped him. This place was strange, confining, impossible to comprehend. But as time passed, minutes, hours, perhaps days, something else emerged. Silence. Not the silence of abandonment, but the silence that invites reflection. He could not escape this space. He could not distract himself. There was no horizon to chase, only truth. And so he prayed, not with polished words, not with rehearsed phrases. From the depths of distress he cried out, "I called to you in my trouble, and you answered me." Images of the sea flashed through his mind, the sinking, the surrender. "The waters closed over me," he whispered, "yet you did not let me drown." He realized something he had resisted before. This was not punishment, it was preservation. "I said I was driven from your sight," he confessed, "but even here you hear me." The anger that had once fueled his flight began to loosen its grip. "I fled because I feared your mercy," he admitted. "I did not want my enemies to live." In that dark chamber, stripped of pride and argument, he surrendered. Salvation belongs to you alone. He did not demand outcomes. He did not negotiate terms. He trusted. And after 3 days and 3 nights, the creature moved toward the shore.
Jonah felt himself thrust forward. Light burst upon him. Air filled his lungs as he collapsed onto sand and stone. Waves lapped quietly behind him. The sea was calm. He lay there, breathing deeply, feeling the warmth of the sun on his face. Then the voice came again, unchanged, unwavering. "Go to Nineveh." This time, he did not argue. He rose. The journey was long. Days passed beneath the scorching sun. When at last the massive walls of Nineveh appeared in the distance, his heart beat heavily. The city was vast, filled with noise and movement. Markets crowded with merchants, soldiers patrolled with stern expressions, temples rose above the skyline. Jonah entered its streets. His message was brief. 40 days more, and Nineveh shall be overturned. No embellishment, no persuasion. He walked through avenues and alleys, repeating the warning. At first, some scoffed, others stared, but something in his voice, steady, solemn, carried weight. The message spread quickly. Whispers moved through marketplaces. Conversations halted. What if this is true? Fear awakened conscience. Violence paused. Pride wavered. From the poorest laborer to the wealthiest merchant, people began to fast. They clothed themselves in sackcloth, outward signs of inward regret. When word reached the king, he rose from his throne. He removed his royal garments and sat in ashes. He issued a decree throughout the city. All must turn from evil. All must cry out to God. No one was exempt. "Who knows?" the king declared. "Perhaps the Lord will relent." And heaven saw. Not empty rituals, but genuine turning. Hands that once oppressed now extended in humility. Hearts long hardened cracked open. And the Lord withheld the judgment he had announced. Nineveh stood. Lives were spared. Mercy triumphed. Jonah watched from outside the city walls. Instead of relief, anger simmered within him. He built a shelter and sat, hoping still for destruction. The sun beat down fiercely. Then, in unexpected kindness, a leafy plant grew beside him, casting cool shade. Jonah rejoiced over the plant. But by morning, a worm had destroyed it. The shade vanished. A scorching wind blew across the land. Frustration boiled over. "It would be better for me to die than to live," he cried. Then came the familiar voice. "Is it right for you to be angry about the plant?" "I am angry enough to die," Jonah replied. "You cared for a plant you did not cultivate. It appeared in a day and perished in a day. Should I not care for Nineveh, a city filled with thousands who do not know their right hand from their left, and many animals as well?" The question lingered in the air. Jonah had rejoiced over shade for himself. Could he not rejoice over salvation for others? The story leaves him sitting there, confronted by mercy wider than his comfort, and the question echoes beyond that ancient hillside. Is it right to resent compassion? Nineveh may no longer stand in stone and mortar, but it exists wherever hearts resist grace given to others. Jonah's struggle is not confined to history. It lives wherever we celebrate forgiveness for ourselves, but hesitate when it is extended to those we dislike. The storm, the depths, the great fish, all were dramatic, but the deepest transformation was quieter. A reluctant prophet learned that obedience is not about controlling outcomes. It is about trusting the character of God.
The one who commands also cares. The one who judges also restores. And no one, no city, no soul is beyond the reach of his mercy.